So, actually making a game. This game we will be making in a group, the same group for the Global Game Jam, but this time, instead of a pile of refuse secreted in a week, we actually get to make a real game. So, what game did we decide to make? Why, of course, alcoholism. Now, I wanted to try making one of my game ideas, but none of them really grabbed onto them because I am rubbish at explaining games. So, what ideas did we agree on? Well, what would be more funny than a bunch of teetotalers making a game about an alcoholic in a pub fight? Some basic ideas we decided on. It should be a fighting game. It should be a roguelike. This is for time efficiency. We can't make 100 high quality levels even if this is the longest project I've done. There should be a mini game about travelling to the next pub. This is just to pace out the game more so you're not spending time constantly fighting. There should be a kebab shop to buy upgrades, like any good roguelike. And yes, this game is just an exercise in alcoholic stereotypes. What did you expect? I did say we were teetotalers. And there should be lots of drinking. And finally, the aesthetics should change based on how drunk you are. Now, I have always really liked the idea of indirect damage and emergent combat. That sounds weird, but a good explanation would be an example from Dishonored, where you can wait for an enemy to try and shoot you, then freeze time, and then possess that enemy, walk them in front of the frozen mid-air bullet, and then resume time, killing them with their own bullet. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds really cool and fun. And I'm sure when the developers created the idea of freeze time and possessing powers, they did not originally come up with that. It's emergent. It really is one of the best examples of emergent design I've seen. Well, that is except, you could do that. Or you could freeze time and then just stab them in the face. And it has the same effect, but it costs you a lot less mana that doesn't regen, and with a lot less danger of having a new orifice. This is really common in games, where there is an option to do a fun Rube Goldberg-esque way of dealing damage that is 1,000 times more inefficient in both in-game resources and thinking resources than just shooting them in the face. Now, there is a very easy, simple solution to this problem, and that is to just remove their gun. Just make it so that the player can't do a simple form of damage. So, a game that does this quite well is Into the Breach, which I would describe as Robot Sumo Kaiju Chess. The main way you deal damage and protect the cities that make up your health bar is by pushing the kaijus around so that they damage each other rather than damaging the cities. Although you do damage them as well. It's very much built for emergent combat with lots of different effects that interact with each other in various ways, and all of your mechs having weird different powers with a variety of effects that all build to create a very fun combat system where you have to link together your 3 mechs' attacks in a turn to prevent you taking damage. The game even has a list of which effects will act first, which I think is a very clever design decision. It is a good game and you really should play it. The idea for a game that I want to make at some point, remember I've not actually been talking about the game that we are making, but anyway, basically, is for it to be a real-time game where the player controls one character. Now, this would kind of break the Into the Breach combat. You would just use the most efficient attack repeatedly. So, what if we did the same thing with the gun to abilities? Yep. What if, when you use an ability, you lose it and you get a random new ability based on like some other stuff? Then the player, when given the freeze time and possess ability, would do the Dishonored example, and it would be the most efficient thing to do. After all, the player will always optimize the fun out of games. This idea comes from 2 places. One from a version of Plants and Zombies, which does this, but it's not really a combat system, so it doesn't count. And the second is a boss in V Rising. Now, V Rising's combat is quite good. as you constantly use all of your abilities on cooldown, and all of them not only do damage, but also fling you across the room. So the combat has a real flow to it as you try and avoid the bullet hell while dealing damage. But anyway, the boss I'm talking about has a gimmick of potions that randomly appear. You can throw them, and it will cause an area effect that either buffs you or weakens the boss in some specific way. So back to the game that we're making. This idea of random powers is definitely an idea I'm going to try and implement, with each of the powers being unique and less focused on just dealing damage. Stuff like freeze time or teleport randomly, just from drinking some alcohol. Did you forget about the game that we are making? Although, I think it will probably end up more like Mario Kart, where you get abilities and sort of just use them mindlessly as soon as you get them. So, Mario Kart, with more drugs and less violence. Now, you may ask, what is the art style for this game? And you'd be wrong. If you're asking how on earth that question is wrong, then that would be because one art style, not enough, just boring. The way that we're making the game is that the art style should switch between being drunk and being sober. Now, many games, if they were to implement it, they would have a normal style, and then when you started drinking, everything goes all wibbly wobbly. That is quite boring. It gets old quite quickly, and it actively discourages you from drinking. Whereas in our game, I want to encourage the player to drink more and more to get more powers. So, what if we made the drunk art style the nice, kind, fun, pastel, just whimsical and slapstick art style, and then made the sober art style Cruelty Squad crossed with Can Your Pet? It should really be vulgar and unpleasant. I think this is a great way to make the player use their drink abilities and to drink more and to try as hard as possible to stay drunk, to avoid the horrible implications of their violent actions. So, what have we actually done in the 3 weeks that we've had so far? Basically nothing. The main thing that we've done is some room assets, which, fair enough, a basic testing world, and a map gen script that puts the fear of God, death, and spiders into your puny mortal mind. That was made by me. I do really need to put more pressure onto the coder and the other coding able devs. A quarter of the way through and we have nothing really to show is concerning. Hopefully I will be able to get more work out of our coder, as we kind of have to wait for them to finish the basics before we can do the extra coding like abilities and stuff. I'm also quite concerned about how to smoothly transition between the art styles. Most of it will be done by replacing textures, but I don't know if that can be done in Engines, and it sounds hard, and we would need to replace some objects, and I don't know how to do that. I think we could just replace rooms with the same room but with different textures, and that might solve the texturing problem, but it might cause other ones. But hopefully the other people know how to do that. Otherwise, yeah,